Hello, everyone in the UK. I hope you survived the hot summer. We're just about getting there. Autumn's down the road. Now, before you all swelter to death, grab your wine, strap in, and relax because we're going to be talking about a few hard truths today in terms of architecture marketing. What am I on about? All will be revealed. And I have someone who has been stuck and lumbered with me for a few years. However, they are going to make sense of the show. And on that fantastic note, I've got the lovely Ayo Abbas from Abbas Marketing. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
Oh, I'm spoiling, sweating, but I'm also excited. And I'm so glad you were here to talk about marketing because you're a professional and I'm a novice. I've kind of learned it as I've gone, and I need a bit of marketing tricks. But together, we can talk about the subject of today, which is the top 5 things that people, architecture practice directors, business owners, or some marketeers, not all of them, not some people, yeah, but some of the mistakes that they make, the top 5 ones that we see every day, which can be improved. However, before we do that, Ayo, for anyone that hasn't met you before, tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are.
So I am Ayo Abbas. I am an award-winning marketing consultant, and I work for myself. I am Digital Woman of the Year 2002 overall winner. I do. I'm a marketing consultant. I also do I create content because I love it, and I also have started training built environment firms on how to do marketing. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. I guess my background is I've done probably most of my work with large engineering firms, the likes of Arup and Rambo and consultancies like Mace and stuff like that. So that's where my background comes from, and working, I guess, with many of the leading architecture practices from their kind of marketing side. So that's me.
Very, very good. So the big to the small, the red tape to the I don't know what we're doing. Please help me. What can we do?
I do work with prop tech and contact firms as well as some of the startups, which is always really interesting because they're learning. Many of those founders are ex-architects who might be learning how to run, prop tech firms and contact firms, which is really interesting.
Brilliant. I think it really helps to get perspective. And as someone in your field, when you see it all, that's really informs how, different styles of marketing, different things. Now, before we go into it, so in case, there's an architecture practice watching this who's like, I'm busy, I'm winning projects, I don't have time to think about marketing. In your definition, though, Ayo, what is marketing, and loosely, why is it important for businesses or anyone that's doing a bit of a hustle or whatever out there? Why should they care about marketing?
Do you know what? I think marketing is very much about clients understanding who they are, what they want from you, and I guess as well how you can communicate with them to sell what you do. And I think that's really, really important. So getting to the grips with that is basically I always think marketing is mainly around what's your message, who are you targeting, and what's your positioning, where do you want to be in that market, and then figuring out what you want to say to it. So that to me is what marketing is in a nutshell, and why it's important is it helps your business to grow and it helps you to get to where you want to be.
Exactly. I think that really, really makes sense. We're out there in the online world, the physical world, and there's a lot of noise out there, isn't it? And we as business owners or even your own personal brand, I think half of it is about cutting through that noise. Now,
exactly.
I thought it'd be fun to mix it up, and I'm glad that you're brave enough to do it, because while we will touch upon why it's important, I think, though, the biggest thing is that people think that they're doing marketing the correct way. However, there's a lot of mistakes that you can make, and actually they're easy to fix. So in that analogy of the noise, if you're making the mistakes, you're just not cutting through the noise. And so I would like to explore how people can ninja style. Yeah. how they can cut through the noise. But to do that, we have to identify what the heck everyone's doing that's wrong. And you've seen a lot of websites, and we're not going to do names. No naming or shaming.
No.
No. However, we're going to learn the lessons, and we're going to pass them on to the lovely viewer, the listener, wherever you are, so that they can stop making them. Now, number one that you said, Ayo, before this, in your words, is that you think number one top mistake that you see is believing that buildings speak for themselves. I would love to know what you mean by this.
Okay, so I think there is this whole thing, architects, they're really into design and visuals and, telling their story through visuals, which is all great. And basically you're visual creatures. So you understand, this is how we communicate, this is what we do. But it's like, if you don't give people some context, if you don't give people some words, if you don't tell people what they're actually seeing or looking at, then you're kind of leaving it up to them to kind of interpret it in their own way. And basically they could misinterpret it, So I think it's kind of, you want to share your story in your way. So you need to use words as well as visuals, and they need to complement each other and, tell that story that you want to give. What's your narrative? What's that message you're trying to convey? So that whole thing around, well, our buildings speak for themselves, we don't need to do any marketing or just use images. It's like, images don't say anything, they really don't on their own. And you're leaving that open to someone's own personal interpretation. And that's a risk.
Very, very good. I agree. And also pictures can be misleading. Pictures can, it doesn't showcase the full picture always, or sometimes they're not even annotated at all. And that's what I think.
No, and actually, if you look at a picture or I look at a picture, we've all got our own biases, experiences. The way that I would view it would be very different to the way that you would. Just a picture on its own, right? So that's what you're leaving in people's mind.
Yeah, okay, right. So that's the problem. Now, obviously, people should get in contact with you to fully solve it. However, to get some snippets to go into the right direction, what should people be thinking about then in terms of images of buildings, or how should they start to speak for themselves? How would you begin that process, Ayo?
For me, it's about kind of storytelling. So understanding, what it is about you, or what it is about that visual that you're trying to communicate, and also understanding who it is for. Who's your target audience? What do they need to know about it? What messages do you need to convey to them? And really just breaking it down in that way. And then that's what your narrative is, and you can build out your story. And I think it's just understanding that, really. And then finding ways to tell that story, and what the language and tone of voice that you want to use. And that will work with that audience. So it's all about that audience. How do you communicate with them in a language that they will understand?
Yeah,
it's them rather than you, which is the hardest part.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I tell you what, because part of the Architecture Social is a website, and if you ever want a hard lesson of reality, is to watch someone browse a website, and the way you think you go through a project or a web page or something, as soon as you put someone else on, it's very revealing. Sometimes you feel a bit awkward. People don't understand where they're going, but it's very important. I mean, what do you think about that kind of analogy?
Have you ever used, there's a tool called like Hotjar, and there's a Microsoft Clarity. And basically it's like not spyware, but it's a way that you record how people are using your website. And you just see how the mouse is looking, or where they're clicking, where they come in, or, what words they're clicking on, where they're expecting more. And it just tells you so much about how your website is actually used, rather than how you think it's used. And I think, for example, when I redid my website, which we're going to look at later on, one of the things for my first iteration of my website, there was on the services page, I didn't have actual it didn't link to actual service pages like marketing consultant and stuff, but people were clicking on it. And that was one of the things I changed when I redid my website, was actually I created separate pages for the services because people wanted more information. So using those types of tools, you can kind of see, basically you get heat maps of where people are going, where they click, all that kind of stuff. But it's so useful for that reason. Very good. And you're right. We will go properly on your website. And I put the link here, which I'll briefly mention, is www.abbasmarketing.com. Very cool. We will check it out. Now, if you still got the old hot shower on, you might have some dopey person wandering about. But don't worry, it's just me on the live stream. So ignore that information. I'm throwing you off. I haven't got it anymore, actually. I stopped it. But when I was redoing it, that's when I used it. I agree. I used it at the start, and there's a funny thing in Hotjar which says
the amount of rage quits, which should be close to 0 or 1%. And at one point it was 5%. So I'm sorry for all those people that were frustrated with the architecture social, but don't worry, we got there. We're getting there in the end. It's an ongoing process. Now, on the theme of an ongoing process, let's go on to number 2, which I can't wait for you to break down, because I'm like, wow, I never would have thought of this. So number 2 was viewing marketing as the coloring department. Oof, burn. Not a strategic professional function. So I'm guessing what you mean in the business, the marketing's in the corner. Yeah. Let them, I don't know,
play with social media,
Yeah. Put a little slide on the Instagram, and then when it's all not working, go, what the hell are you bloody doing? So,
yes.
Okay. Come on, tell us what you mean by this.
I guess there are many firms that are quite old school and traditional still in our sector, dare I say it. And some people do kind of turn around and go, well, we don't need to do any marketing, and kind of view us as being, oh, it's just a young person's thing. It doesn't really matter. It's not actually supporting our business. And basically, like the colouring in department, we just give it to them over there. We don't really care. Like they're just over there making pretty things. And that is so outdated. Some of the marketing teams I work with now are just amazing. They're analytical. They're working with business leaders. They're looking at the numbers. They're looking at the growth. They're using digital to kind of inform their marketing campaigns. And they're really, really supporting their business objectives. And I know so many great marketers who are working in that way. And I think any firm that's kind of viewing marketing or socials or digital marketing as that kind of colouring in department, something their niece does over Christmas, whatever, you're missing out. And I think that is the most important part. And it's understanding that it can help you as part of the kind of growth engine of your business and really kind of get you firing into and get you where you want to be. So proper marketing.
I agree. I agree. And I'll just say that it's never too late to change that, though, isn't it? You just start bringing them in.
Yeah.
I worked at a large anonymous company before, which used to do in the recruitment sector. So it's okay, but they're different in marketing people. And when someone came in, it was kind of like insanity before. So another person comes in expecting different results, didn't happen. But suddenly they started bringing on board that marketeer, bringing them into the business, the top layer meetings. And then suddenly things were getting done, and the more control then the marketeer would have over the website for influence, the better. You're right. If they just have access to an Instagram channel, that's quite myopic. You have to look at the full picture of the business to really amplify the effect.
Because it will be like, what's the overall strategy for your Instagram, and how would that feed into your overall objectives for your business? How do you get your audience off Instagram and where you want them to be, so you can continue that conversation? So it's looking at that kind of strategic angle of what it is you're trying to achieve, and that's got to be the key.
Got you. Okay, makes sense. And for any marketeers who feel like you're being treated as the colouring in department, should probably leave that company. Have a good old chat with your boss after this. Go like, what the heck am I doing? I really want to make a change. Let me do it.
Do you know what? I'm also going to give a shout out as well. We have a network called Build Up, which is a networking group just for marketeers in the built environment. Marcoms people, and so there's a whole network. It's about 600 of us around mainly in the UK, but also around the world. We run events for marketeers as well, or about upskilling, getting together, so you're not alone.
Brilliant. I'll put that in the description after this.
I'll give you the link for that.
Yes, please send me the link, because I'm not as organized as you, so that helps. Brilliant. Cool. That's so cool. I'm glad that's there. Okay. We're going through this at a nice pace. I like it. Now, quick interlude. If anyone in the audience in a marketing department or interested in marketing, or any questions that come to your mind, feel free to jump in on this live stream. If not, just come along for the ride and have a wine. It's totally cool. No pressure. But if you want to ask me, probably not, or Ayo a question while she's here, then now's the time. Anyways, moving swiftly on. Number 3. Which I really, really agree with, is not keeping up to date with the social media platform innovations and new features. Ayo, in your opinion, what do you mean by this? Can you expand?
So I think, when you look at platforms like Instagram and you look at platforms like LinkedIn, They are always changing. They invest, though, you know, those platforms invest so much money into their development. There's new features coming out almost all the time. They tend to prioritize, like they give priority to their new features quite often because they want them to work.
Yes.
So
correct.
if you try and adopt them and you try and use them early, you can normally gain some kind of first mover advantage. And I just think a lot of firms are like, this is how we use LinkedIn. And some people still only see it as a recruitment channel, for example, when it's far more. And, you know, this is how we use LinkedIn. This is how we use Instagram, you know, and the platforms are changing all the time. The algorithm changes, the look and the feel of the platforms, their interfaces change all the time and where stuff is, you know, and the features as well. So I think it's just understanding that you kind of need to make sure that you're keeping up to date with what's going on and what is working on that particular platform. So for example, if you're on Instagram, which is harder and harder to kind of get visibility for most people.
I agree with that.
And, you know, a lot of practices, if you look at a lot of the kind of people on the platform now who have got like 20,000 followers upwards in the architecture field, they normally did that a few years ago. So it was before everyone was on the platform. So that's the thing, is like, it's hard to get traction now, but you know, so if you're focused on what does my feed look like, or my feed needs to look so beautiful, that's not going to get you growth. It's not going to get you more followers, right? What's going to get you followers now? Videos on Reels, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
Stories, communicating what your story and your behind the scenes and stuff like that, you know, and using DM strategy. That's where you get the most interaction and engagement. And that's a different way of thinking. And each one of those little kind of areas would need a different approach to them. So and they all need to kind of work together with your overall kind of goals for what you want to achieve as a business. So there is thought behind it, but it's just understanding actually what's working now on these platforms. And it's worth reviewing that, say, on a quarterly basis, to make sure that you are prioritizing the right areas of that platform, because it does change. So for example, I mean, LinkedIn's my baby, and that's the one I really love using. But like, you know, LinkedIn newsletters, not many practices, I think, like I've seen engineers like Bureau Happold have them, for example. They've got great reach right now, you know what I mean, for getting the word out. You know, lives like this work really well. I mean, you do have to push them more because it does this weird thing where it doesn't show it, but it's just knowing how to use a different functionality on there. I mean, there's audio rooms, which not many people even know exist. So it's just knowing all these different areas and how you can use them to your advantage. So for me, that's what you need to do, is like, what's new on this platform? What can I try out and see how it works?
Yeah, well said. And wow, I couldn't agree more. I'm glad you said that, because I think architecture practices stay in the Instagram comfort zone. And I think that, as you say, when Reels came out, Instagram wanted a bit of that TikTok pie, and the algorithm moved to that. And Reels can be amazing. I collaborated with a very, you know, promising up and coming like architectural marketeer, Sana Tabassum, who does, you know, scale. One reel went viral. Woo, loads of followers.
Well, that's exactly it, right? But it's just understanding and collaborations and trying new things and just being slightly more experimental. You know, let's try and see what's going to work. And I think we've all got to try that, I guess, a bit more play, right?
Exactly. And I was going to say, the truth is, for that one reel that went viral, there's like 20 in the graveyard which didn't, you know, and that will link on to your next point. I'm only going to jump in one quick thing, because like you, I really like LinkedIn. I'm open to more. Freds, you haven't won me over yet, Freds. Okay, but I do like LinkedIn, and what I would say is, you were right. The mailing list is such an important one. Everyone should do that. The other one to really, I think, is really good to engage the community is polls. I try to do one every 2 to 3 weeks, just one, because
I see your polls. I do them as well.
Yes, and just keep them open. It gets people thinking, and there's no wrong answer. Gets the conversation going. Polls and mailing lists. You're right, and audio rooms so underutilized. Whereas you know, 2 years ago, I was all about, what was that platform? Clubhouse. Oh, you know, it was the cool thing. It was the cool thing. But
that's why they set it up, wasn't it? It was their version of Clubhouse, which, you know, but it's just trialing these new things and seeing, isn't it? And like you say, polls do work really well. Carousels can be quite nice. It's just mixing stuff up and trying.
Yes. And the last thing I'll say on it, because it was such a good point, so I wanted to focus on
extra things.
Yeah, it's that when the algorithm changes in platforms, don't feel too emotionally attached to them, because some people are like, oh, Instagram's my baby. And I'm like, do you know what? You got to just move on. I mean, the Architecture Community Forum was big in 2020 when the pandemic, busy.
Yeah.
However, less people use it right now. And that's okay. But in my business, then I pivot towards the podcast, the live streams, the polls, where people's going. And it's not a loss. You've got to move with things. You can't just stay attached to Instagram, because they will change the algorithms and all that stuff. And also don't just go on one platform, because you might, you're putting all your eggs in one basket. I mean, what do you think?
Well, Twitter, or what was Twitter? If that was all your baskets are, come on, it's complete. Exactly. It's an absolute mess. And so I think that whole thing, and I think the other thing I always talk about is that these platforms are free to use, right? Which therefore means that you're basically, your data is what they're selling, right? In adverts to other people.
Yeah.
And it's their platform. You don't own it, which therefore means that they can change the algorithm or how they use it whenever they want. It's not yours to own. So I think the other thing is like using those social media platforms to grow your own list as well. So I would say having some kind of email list and data that sits within your own firm. And you can start that off really small. You start to have an email list and things like that. That is yours to own. Because if you are completely reliant on social media, like if all your eggs were in the Instagram basket and the algorithm changed, and you're like, oh, my leads are suddenly dried up. It's like, you need to kind of have some safety there, a safety net for yourself, don't you?
Yeah, I agree. And the last thing I'll say on it, because it's so good. It's so good. I think I don't know what kind of people on what platform. So if your business is targeted at homeowners, it might be a bit of the gram. It might be Facebook. I don't like Facebook that much. I begrudgingly have it. But for homeowners, conservatories, extensions, that makes more sense. They are not going to be people on LinkedIn. If you're targeting LinkedIn and you're trying to do house conversions, I think you're in the wrong area. However, if you have got some fancy design, or you're targeting a developer that is prominent, maybe they're on LinkedIn, that's the place to go. So know where your market is and clearly define it and chase that as well. And that might change over time. I mean, do you agree with that as well?
I completely agree with that. That's totally right. It's go where your audience is. So knowing who you're going for, and like you say, homeowners, more likely to be Facebook, even Pinterest, all those types of places, all those different places.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I've got a quick question before we go on to the next one. We got a question that's come in, and we can both rack our brains. Okay. So Anupama says, what are the most commonly used platforms now in the architectural community, in case we missed one off the list? Wow. So, I mean, and I will say that because I think there's still a niche. So the Architecture Social was quite busy. The forum, I felt, was bouncing during the pandemic, mainly, people from students up to architects. Now it's a bit quiet. Is there somewhere online? I think LinkedIn is the closest one that I can think of. I mean, there's a few ranting architects on Twitter who just, I don't know, rant about stuff.
I try and avoid those ones. Yeah, you know those ones where you're like, I just block them. I don't see them. It's too depressing. It's like, you're,
I know. But where is it? It's a good question. The truth is, Anupama, I don't really know anymore, because my own community is not as active as I'd like. Maybe it'll pick up and I'll look at this in a year or two, or maybe I need a marketing strategy.
Do you know what? I think the market is, I think it's a lot more fragmented. And I think that's the issue. Everyone's out and about. And, post COVID, everyone's kind of like, I don't want to get out. I don't want to have to do everything online now. So I think a lot of people are out and about. And for me, I think it's more about, rather than where you are, it's about getting the best of both worlds. So how do you use your digital marketing activity to kind of boost your in-person?
Yeah.
And I think it's that. So if you're going to an event, actually, I'm going to be at London Build next month, write a post, get that out, see if you can set up, so you're using the best of both worlds. You're using social media to be social. Yeah. And I think that's kind of it. I think it's kind of the way it's being used is changing. And I think it's because people are probably in some ways slightly pulling back, or not as being as active as they were when we were in lockdowns. So I think it's just finding that way to kind of still get it to support what you're doing.
I agree.
But
I
platform wise, I think it's kind of like TikTok's doing really well for younger people, right? I think it's, you know, and I think it depends on age group and what people prefer. I like LinkedIn because, you know, it's more of a community and you can have good conversations in the comments. Twitter, it's ruined. What else? Instagram, if you're not really into reels. I don't love Instagram.
And also, like, because I, you know, the use of the word community, I mean, LinkedIn is the closest thing to that, in my opinion, because people can talk back and forth. There's the polls, all this stuff. When I was running a forum, I spent a lot of time thinking about what is a community, what is that thing, and I think that people fall into this misconception that on Instagram, because you have a few followers, it's necessarily a community. I think that's an audience which you can participate. But like you said, Ayo, actually a community is engagement. It's about back and forth, you know, and
you can't do that in Instagram. In the DMs, it's a one-to-one conversation. It's not a group conversation. And I think that's the bit that's missing in there. Do you know what I mean? It's not what you use it for. I completely agree.
So Anupama, the reason we don't have a conclusive answer is because it is, as you say, it's blurry and it moves. And is it in person? Is it online? You know, and where is it? Where's that conversation going?
But there's also those. I mean, there's also stuff like Reddit, isn't there? Quora, Reddit, all of those types of more underground stuff as well, which I don't go into. But there are people that use those as communities. So, I don't have an answer. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Who knows? Okay. Thank you so much for bringing in that question. By the way, any other questions? Feel free to ask while we're here. Now, number 4, the top 5 mistakes that people do. So number 4 on the list is trying a marketing activity once, then saying it doesn't work and giving up too soon. Okay, spill the anonymous tea. Give me an example.
Right. So an example. I'm going to give you one of my examples. So I wrote a blog probably 3.5 years ago when Carillion went down, when it went out of business. And it was literally about construction industry is broken. And I basically wrote all the stuff that I thought was wrong with the industry. And it went viral. And that was like 3 years ago. Last year, I got an email from a journalist at the Times who was writing a piece about the construction industry model. And that blog was on page 1. And I ended up in the Times newspaper with picture, quotes. I didn't have to do anything. He literally lifted it from my blog. Now, for me, if I'd given up on blogging and said, it doesn't always work, don't have the time, all of that kind of stuff. But it does take time to build. I mean, that was something I wrote 3 years ago. And I got it out there. And I think that's the thing that people quite often, they just give up too soon. So they go, we tried Instagram, it didn't work. Well, maybe you didn't try it in the right way. Maybe you need to warm that audience. Maybe you need to find the right kind of tone of voice or the right images to use. And I think it's that trial and error and that test and learn. And I think it's acknowledging that good things take time to build. And I mean, I did a post recently on LinkedIn and Instagram, which is around the timelines for different types of marketing. So like, if you want to do SEO, to even start getting like search engine optimization and getting ranked on Google, you know, it's going to take you at least 6 months to even start to build up any traction. So it's knowing that type of marketing you're doing and actually what's the timeline for that and giving yourself the space to kind of try, you know, and do incremental improvements. So I think that's the kind of thing, and bearing in mind that a lot of marketing will start to compound over time. So if you start getting your tone of voice right, you start getting your branding out there, you start talking about the things that you want to be known for, that will start to compound and actually have a snowball effect. So I think it's about committing to it and then going for it and acknowledging it's not everything happens overnight, unless you're doing like paid ads, but even that still needs tinkering with, and it still takes time to find the right audience and get them really firing. So
I'll be honest, I've never dabbled in the paid ads. I do pay for jobs on LinkedIn for the business, which is sort of similar, a little bit different. However, you're right. You got to keep going. And I think YouTube's the greatest example of that. The amount of people I know who've done a YouTube thing, because YouTube is excruciatingly hard. You know, they all are, but YouTube in particular is really hard. You've got to do like 100 videos to get anywhere.
And
Or
keep going, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And the podcast, you're right, is keep going. And sometimes I do an episode and I think, all right, it was good. Wasn't maybe my favorite. I'm not allowed to have favorites though, a bit like kids, isn't it? They're all great episodes. But what I mean is maybe some episodes connect more with me than others.
Yeah.
However, someone could really love it and you could get an engagement from that. Or, you know, and also it's about, like you said, it's the compound effect. It's not about one podcast episode, it's about the bulk of work, and they appreciate over time, because also, as you quite correctly said, search engine optimization, I hate it but love it because it's so important. It's needed, and it's the same concept, because the more pages you have, the more things online. And then Google, over time, what it does is that it identifies you as an authority, and because of someone
that builds your domain ranking builds. Yeah,
and then it starts trusting you more, and it's because you got loads of stuff. So I have a big thing of getting it out there. You know, do some of the Architecture Social podcasts at the start. Go, you know, do I like them? Or maybe my opinions change, but I don't look back. And I think it's about going forward, and it's about a process. You have to keep going. And the last thing I'd say on it before we back up to yourself is that I think architects can get in their own way of being perfectionists. They just get, you know, and about the details, and in the end, they don't put the thing out there. And that's because architects are amazing. And I agree that. However, we just need to get it out there, because sometimes when you're waiting for things to be perfect, you know, as you said, Ayo, it takes 6 months to even be recognized on Google, 3 if you're lucky, whatever. But the more you faffing around with it, that could be time that Google is identifying you, and then you improve it. You know, if I look at the first Architecture Social logo, it's a pile of rubbish. But you kind of you change it, don't you?
But you got it out there, and that's the thing. You got it out there. I mean, I kind of like, you know, sometimes when people do that whole thing around designing in public, and then, you know, like when they're building software and they're actually like, you know, this is what we're building, this is our prototype, and they get the rough thing out there so that people look at it. You know, it's not being done in isolation. I kind of think in some ways, with some aspects of marketing, actually sometimes just starting is good.
I agree. You will laugh. I don't even practice sometimes I just release my website as is. It does crash now and then, but you know what? You got to break the rules. I'm not a professional like yourself. Maybe you'd be reining me in where some people need to push out, you know?
With you, I would be like, oh my gosh.
Get Steve away from the release button. Spell check it again. He's been editing it. I can see.
He lost attention there. Sorry, you can just tell.
Doesn't know what he's talking about. Don't worry, I agree with you. However, someone does think we know what we talk about. Hooray! And Apama says, thank you both for the good advice. She says that in terms of a business, maybe we're underutilizing LinkedIn, to be honest, but great ideas. Yes, do check out LinkedIn. It is good. And the last thing I'd say on LinkedIn is that they are putting a lot of time, effort. I was on their content creator program.
I know, I was jealous.
You should do it. I mean, I thought it was really useful, and I learned a lot from it, and I could see where they want to take it, and they want to bring that into LinkedIn. You know, the platform's a lot less stuffy than people believe. I think it's really the way to go, and it was a good course to be on. And they paid me
on it. I know, and I was like, "Damn it! I didn't apply when I saw it." You know, when you're like, "Oh, I should have done that."
Oh, it was good. I really recommend everyone check it out. And if someone's like, "I don't have a clue what Steve's talking about," is the LinkedIn Content Creators course pops up, I think, twice a year. You have to do a video on it, and mine was loud and proud like this, going, "Well, I'm going to talk about the metaverse," and then and then I got in somehow. So if I can do it, you definitely can, you know. And it's open to everyone and all levels. Don't worry about how many followers you got or whatever. There were people on the course that were just starting, as well as like some mega celebrities and stuff, you know.
Yeah, I saw that. It looked really round. Like the levels were very, very different, and I saw quite a few people on it. But also, I mean, what's great about it is that you would hear it from the horse's mouth, which is the thing that you want, is to kind of understand where they're going as a platform, which I think is fascinating. So
yeah, they were really, really good. So I recommend checking out that. Now, the last point, but certainly not the least, was number 5 of your top 5 tips of like mess ups in architecture marketing. And number 5 was expecting marketing unicorns. One person can't do everything.
So there is that whole thing, isn't there, of like a generalist marketer or a specialist. So for example, me, I am a generalist. I work across marketing. I can kind of, I have areas in which I specialize more. So like I like writing copy and creating content, stuff like that. But can I do everything? Am I expert at SEO? No, but I might know the basics. Am I expert at PR? No, a bit, because I started off in PR. But am I so it's kind of like understanding that marketing, we all have different skill sets. So understanding what skill sets you need for in particular, not trying to write job specifications when you're looking to hire a marketeer in-house that kind of are 7 roles wrapped in one, which some of the ones I have seen are. So, like when they're like, you need to do PR, you need to be able to do comms, you need to be able to do crisis comms, you need to be able to do SEO, and like literally you need to work on bids, and like you're just like so many different things and that's when you're standing there going, that's when you're setting a marketer up to fail. And that is when you will turn around and go, well, marketing doesn't work very well, does it? Well, if you're kind of not understanding how to write a job spec properly or what skills you need and all of that kind of stuff, or how to build a marketing team, then that is where the issue lies. So for me, marketing unicorns and expectations to be able to do everything from, being great on like making reels and video editing to doing a bid, let's be honest, one person doesn't have all of those skills. So I think it's about writing job specs and roles that are actually achievable, and also realizing that we all have different areas of specialization even as a generalist, and recognizing those skill sets and staffing accordingly.
Yeah, I agree. That's really well said. And I think, do you know what? While that's really important for marketing, I think that can be applied across the board. I think as a person, if you have a wider skill stack, that is great. But you're right. When you have a wider skill stack, that's the definition. It's wide, and typically it won't be high on everything. You might have an area of expertise and some little. And you're right. I mean, I squirmed when you said bid documents, because the moment that goes onto a job spec, that's all that person will be doing.
You're swallowed. Your time's gone. And then they'll be like, but you haven't updated the website. Well, when?
Yeah, when the design director's screaming at me that the brochure needs to change and that do in London won't appreciate that page, so it's a very nuanced thing. Bids are just a completely different world. But okay, so those are really useful. So we've done the top 5. So first of all, there's a little woohoo round of applause for that. Well done. I appreciate it. If I had plug my soundboard in, then I would do it. But you get the real bell.
Now, I like the bell. That's good.
But it's classic. So we don't need all those tricks.
It's quite understated, a bit like me. I like it.
Oh, brilliant. I'm glad you do. Now, you touched upon a bit, you getting in the industry and stuff as well, because there's the 2 sides to this podcast, I think. So this was useful for business owners. And even though we talked about it for business, I think that you could apply a lot of this stuff, even if you are a professional, because we're talking about brands here. We're talking about platforms. We're talking about concepts which can be applied to everyone, especially like I think this point number 3, you should just be doing that with your own personal brand anyways. However, but tell me about yourself though, because I get a lot of people, right, who do architecture, kind of want to go into marketing, fall into marketing, love marketing, have a passion for it. So do you want to run me a little bit through a little bit about your career and then what you enjoy about what your role is now?
So so I actually how did I fall into it? So I've got a business degree with a marketing specialism, and I graduated in 2001, which shows my age. But my first job was actually working in construction PR. So I worked for agency, and I was in the PR team, and I was writing and promoting building products. So things like lighting, carpets, tiles, bricks, to architects and contractors. So that was my job for 3 years, was to do that. And then kind of once I left there, because I really couldn't go to more parties or get any more drunker, like, well, I need to use my brain more as well. So I actually went in-house and I started working for engineering firms. So I worked for a small one, and then I ended up at a large one like Arab, and then I kind of moved around. So that's kind of how I ended up in the sector.
Wow. Okay. Very cool. I love it. And so you've done the bricks. You've done the big buildings. It's the large scale to the small scale. So I mean, I think that says a lot. And I love how that one little keyword with specialism in marketing then leads you onto the career. That's very true. I get, though, a lot of people asking about how they go into marketing, all that stuff. If you were to speak to someone now that wants to get into marketing, do you have a little bit of advice that you would normally say to a person about, how you get into it, or who's it really for?
To be honest, I think if we're honest, if you want to go up in your career in a practice, if you get involved in marketing and that BD side and client relationships, you are putting yourself on the front foot. So for me, it's more about being keen, shadowing some of your senior leaders, when they go out networking, what they're doing, and if you've got an interest in social media, then actually trying it out yourself. You can be the guinea pig, as it were. Try that on your own profiles, and then see what you can do and find your voice. And I'm all for people in-house finding their own voice and the things that really they're passionate about and sharing about. Because all of a sudden, if you start building up some kind of following or profile online, your directors will see that people are actually seeing you as a thought leader and also start to consider you in a different light as well. So for me, it's, I guess, showing keenness, right? And then, I'm interested in that. I'd like to go networking with you and just kind of learning the ropes and how it works, what's important. And also, most importantly, those client relationships. If you have those, everyone will want you in their marketing team.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing, but also the most rewarding thing is client relations. I mean, we touched upon earlier, I do recruitment. My goodness, if there's ever a person that doesn't need a recruitment consultant, it's someone that has a lot of relationships with clients, because they literally, if you do a good job, a client will typically follow you wherever you go. Therefore, it goes the other way around, where you're no longer trying to get an interview, you're interviewing the company, and the company will usually want you for what you're worth, but with all the business that you can bring. So that is something to think about. Doesn't happen straight away. When I was at part 2, barely knew anyone. It takes a bit of time, but it's doable, isn't it? And it isn't comfortable, though. I'll be the first to admit, client facing at the start, it's scary, isn't it? Because it's the client.
Oh God, yeah. It is, and then you're like, and that's it. But I think it's a skill that we all have to learn. And I think, and that's the thing. Once you have that, though, it's just so valuable, and it will take you throughout your career wherever you end up.
Yeah, I agree. And the last thing that I'd add to that is that I think that initially you can get enamored by the client, but actually you should respect the client, but treat them as an equal. And you offer a value to the client to solve a particular set of problems you have, and you need them to listen to you. Otherwise, they'll just walk all over you, or not use you. And I'm a big believer in, of course, you want to be pleasant. I'm a big believer that you should never put anyone down. You should treat everyone with respect. But I read something and it really made me think. And it's that not always the client has to like you to use you. They just have to think you're the best person for the job. I think being nice and liked is a bonus. However, if you're the best person and you have their interest and they believe you're skilled, they'll still pick you. They
will. Yeah, because it's about them. It's what they need.
Yeah, and bonus last one, that I think that sometimes people go, oh, I'll chop my fees. That's an architecture thing, isn't it? We'll lower it down to be more competitive. And sometimes cheap is cheap. And does everyone want cheap? And that's the other thing we have to learn. That's the other thing that we have to embrace. my rates per hour have gone up this year. So should yours. You're worth more. And that's what I believe. If I'm putting it up, you should be putting it up. Why shouldn't you? And I think that's a psychology that we should be having. Not, oh my goodness, it's tough at the moment, let me cut my prices. Because cutting your prices is cutting the quality of the work sometimes. I mean,
and the only person you're doing out of it is yourself. Is the only person you're really harming, isn't it? Yeah. But it's also like building that brand so that and you believing in your own brand, that you're worth that value. You know what I mean? That psychology is in there as well.
Yes, and I think once you get that in the head and it permeates through you, the better you will be with as well. And it's charge what you're worth, and that's what I believe. Okay, I'm going to stop because I got to be careful I don't go on a mini tangent about that. So now it's your turn to, I tell you what, you can throw a curveball tangent in whatever direction you want. Before we talk about your website, before we talk about where people can find you and why they should use you, which they should, if you got any questions for me, anything.
I was going to say, as it was your birthday yesterday, what did you do?
Oh my God. My sister came down on the weekend, so we all went out, we did a crazy one. So I was a bit boring yesterday. I just stayed at home, did a little bit of work, did a little bit of marketing, not too much, chilled out and enjoyed it. But last Friday, don't feel sorry for everyone because I went on the Raz.
How long did it take you to recover?
Good day. Well, I was out Friday, I was out Saturday, and then Sunday I kind of chilled out. Got an infection. That sounds so dodgy.
You better explain that.
Yeah, that sounds so bad. Okay, do you have any professional questions for me?
Stay there.
You know, all that big talk about my rate going up, it's just suddenly gone down 50% because of what I said. And I'm like, there you go. Do you know what? We're in a post-pandemic world. There's stuff out there. What you want from me? I'm at home in my bubble now. All right? Okay. Cool. All right. Wow, I thought you were going to come in a curveball about recruitment or whatever, or give me a real singer. Nah, that's boring chat, isn't it? God, we don't want none of that.
I haven't done that.
Nah, we don't want none of that. Okay. My health aside, let's talk about something healthy, such as your business offering. So I'm going to bring up your beautiful website now. However, tell us about your business, tell us what you're up to, and tell us why people should get in contact with you.
Right. So I am Ayo Abbas, and I'm a marketing consultant who specializes in working with engineers and architects. Is what I do. It's what I love. I am currently kind of pivoting slightly. So I'm kind of moving towards doing more content creation. So that's going to be things like helping people set up podcasts, creating amazing kind of campaigns and content. Yeah, I am. And also I'm doing more kind of speaking and supporting, like speaking at events and things like that, but also training as well. So I'm going to start doing masterclasses for people on different topics. That I'll do some low cost ones, and I'll also do corporate training. So I'm kind of pivoting what I'm doing, and I'll still do things like consultancy, kind of advisory power hours as well. So it's all, I'm in transition at the moment. So my website is changing.
I love it as well. And also tell me about your podcast. I want to hear all about it.
So I have a podcast, which I set up in July 2020, which is on episode 55, is out this Friday. So it is called the Built Environment Marketing Show. Basically, I interview people from the industry, and we talk about marketing from strategy, digital channels, what's going on. And basically, I find people whose stuff I really love. So I do honestly fangirl. So like on Friday, it's going to be Hawley, who've got beautiful marketing content. And so chatting to them. So yeah, that's what I do. So I've got my own podcast show as well. So you can find that in Apple and everywhere else. Brilliant.
And okay, so before you read out the website name, Lola in the audience says content creating. Sounds interesting. What sorts of topics are you looking to tackle?
So for me, I mean, I enjoy creating content. So for example, I am working with people who want to develop their own podcasts. So helping them set them up, get guests, all of the stuff. So they start to get that out there. I also love writing as well. So I might be working with people on a campaign on a particular theme where I interview business leaders and I help support their marketing team to get content out there. So yeah, that's kind of content creation that I love. So yeah.
Fabulous. Now, if someone wants to get in contact, where can they find you, and what is the website?
So website is Abbas Marketing, which is ABBAS marketing.com. You can find loads of stuff there, blogs, lots of kind of cool stuff on there. And best place to contact me tends to be on LinkedIn, where I am most days. So literally just follow and I will connect with you.
Knocking around with me. There you go. It's the place to be until there's somewhere else. Maybe we'll look back at this and we'll think, my goodness, LinkedIn was the one. Now it's changed. Although I suspect that they will just get bigger and bigger and bigger, especially after going behind the scenes with them. But Ayo, you've been such a pleasure. I really, really enjoy you being here, and everyone should check out your services and get in contact and say hello. And thank you for everyone in the audience that gave us questions. I really appreciate it. And on that note, I will be ending the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. It keeps me, I don't know, excited. It breaks up all my day. I love it. I do have a busy podcast week next week, but for the life of me, I can't remember what they are, other than I looked at my diary on Monday. I went, okay, one or two of these will be as good as this episode. So I promise you they will be really, really good. Thank you so much again for being here, to my lovely guest. And we will see you next time. I'm going to end the live stream. I'll stay on the stage. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Take